All right. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Oliver Blue, and wherever you may be, and whatever time it may be, at the point that you are watching this workbook lesson, we greet you on this great. They call it Good Friday. I choose to call it Great Friday. It's the greatest Friday that I know because it's the greatest Friday that there is in existence. This Friday. It's the only one I know, and I'm going to celebrate it. I'm going to be thankful for it. It is a great Friday, and welcome once again to uh, these workbook lessons from A Course in Miracles that are sponsored by none other than Truly Foundation, a nonprofit organization that is dedicated and devoted to the sharing of advanced spirituality for the purpose of awakening humanity to the reality of our true self and as a solution to the one problem. And that solution is we remain as God created us. And so we are, as I've said many times, we are the holy home of God. We are as God created us. Uh, we are whole and complete. We are eternal. We are what God is, and God is our only reality. We share the same life, the same love that God is. That sharing of the love is the experience that we're having here in an awakened state. If we have what accepted this what gift of life for ourselves, atonement for ourselves. There are more of humanity remaining in a state of sleep, in a state of darkness, unawareness. But those that have awakened to this reality, we are enjoying what I guess we can call describe from a Christian terminology. We are enjoying this what resurrected life on this what Good Friday, this Resurrection Friday, as they call it in tradition. And so all of that is just symbolic. It's not for us to build a monument or build a shrine to worship. That was never the intent. Jesus never intended for us to build a shrine or to worship his accomplishments. He wanted us to understand what he was doing and the implication that it has in our life, so that what we can indeed have this direct experience of knowing of our true self, expressing our true self, being the light of the world, which is our function, understanding what our purpose in life is. And so on this great Friday, as I called it, I greet you in the name of the one self, the one God, the one life that we all share. Today we'll call it resurrection life. Resurrection merely means that that something has returned to what its original state, to resurrect, to resurrect, to rejoin, to become re-aware of the conscious divine self that we are. So we're going to jump right into lesson 96. So if you have your book, you can join me as I read through this. I'm not going to be very long. The idea for today is salvation. And remember, we define salvation is a promise made by God that all humanity will eventually come into the knowledge of the truth. It is God guarantees this. Why? Because that's what God created. That's what God extended. The life that God extended, the one self that God extended, God guarantees that one self remains as it was created, intact. Because that one self includes God. And so salvation is just a promise or a guarantee by God that all humanity will eventually wake up, that none is lost, that heaven remains intact, that Humpty Dumpty is Uh, Humpty Dumpty never fell off the wall, but Humpty Dumpty is still this one self we call God. And that all the illusions and all the dreams and wild imaginings and fantasies of being a separated self, or God separating himself or splitting himself up, or there's been anything outside of God, that was all a fantasy, all a dream, all wild imaginings. None of it was true. And so the acceptance of that reality is to accept or to resurrect to resurrect that which always has been. And that is the one self that we share. So today we're talking about salvation. And that salvation, the reality of what I just spoke about, comes from our one self. It comes from the reality that our one self is all there is that exists. The shared self. God calls it the kingdom. There's many metaphors. There's many examples that point us to this reality. I mean, even Jesus's death, burial, resurrection, and ascension points us to that reality, that we all share the one self, that he was in all of that, in his entire life, entire ministry, was a demonstration or a metaphor of God reconciling the world or resurrecting the world back unto itself, or waking the world up from the dream of separation. They're all the same. We can say it many different ways, but the bottom line is God is, and there is nothing else. And therefore we are. If God is, therefore I am. Because the one thing that we all do know is that we do what? That we do exist, that we are conscious, that we are aware, that we're not dead, that we're alive, and that we've always been alive, that we will always be alive, as it was in the beginning, now, and forever it shall be. And that's resurrection. Resurrection is merely an awakening. It's merely an enlightenment, but a recognition that that which was from the beginning remained as it always was. That's really the meaning of Easter. That's the symbol of Easter. It's not about a sad story about a horrid death, or all of the betrayal, all of the plots and all the other storylines. They were what they were. I mean, they were just human experiences. Even with Jesus, that was his story. And we all have a story. That was his story, history, see? And now what? This is our story. And our story will eventually become history. Someone can read back on your life and say, that was him. That was her. They exemplified this or that. So what will your life, what story be? What will it exemplify? Will you be a symbol of faith, a symbol of oneness, a symbol of what? A symbol of the one self that we share? Will you be what? The symbol of resurrection? Will your life demonstrate or communicate to all humanity that all humanity is one, that all humanity is joined in one, that all humanity has been reconciled back into the one, that there is no inequality, there is no death? Will your life demonstrate and communicate and be what? Remembered as one that was what? When you've seen this person's life, you've seen the Father's life. Your life demonstrated the characteristics of your Father, God. That you and your Father was one, and you was totally committed to the will of the God, your Father. Will your life communicate that? Regardless of what you do, that you was being the light of the world. Is that what your history will reflect? The resurrected life. And so it says here, salvation comes from that one self. That's where the experience of this reality happens within a human life, whose mind is what renewed to this reality and brought into harmony with that reality, so that what? There is no conflict within the one self. There is no conflict, but complete harmony, complete peace, complete love and joy and laughter and happiness. That is what expressed or actually experienced, which is called love. So the experience of who we truly are is what real love is. It is the experience of God. And so on this great Friday, this Good Friday, this symbolic Friday, it's a time of reflection and a time of personal examination. To ask yourself, where are you? Where are you in the scheme of reality versus unreality? Are you continuing to promote separation? Is your life continually to reflect hatred and bitterness and holding on to grievances and holding your brother in hell by holding his mistakes against him? Is your life reflecting that peace is not a reality, or is your life reflecting in this great Friday? Is it demonstrating that we all share the same life, that we all share the same being, that our life is in an eternal state, even as we speak, even in the form that we're in? Is your life reflecting who we are is unchangeable, is unalterable? Is your life reflecting that everything that God created remains as it is created? Is your life reflecting that only God and love creates reality and nothing else? Is our life, your life, reflecting that it is beyond what can be learned? It can only be experienced. That you are a timeless and a formless being. Is your life reflecting that there is no opposite, that we're not double-minded, that we're not duplicitous, but that we are of the one spirit that God is? Is your life reflecting that there is no beginning and no end? What is your hope? What is your expectation? Is your life reflecting that you merely are? And so this is where we are. We have the historical elder brother that demonstrated to us without any doubt or any fear. He faced it all. He forgave him all. He said, Father, what? He said, well, I forgive them. Why? Because they know not what they do. They are still asleep, but the day is coming that they all will awake. And he said, Father, you guarantee this. Therefore, what? All that you have given me, what? I have lost none. Isn't that a wonderful? That even in whatever place we find ourselves in right now, right in this moment as you're listening to me, isn't it wonderful to know that what? Only the will of God shall prevail. Even if I'm in this moment and I don't understand. If I'm in this moment and I'm might be even living a lie or living an illusion or living a dream, that none of that changes anything. What God intended shall intended shall remain. That God is the guarantee of our salvation. God is the guarantee that we all remain as He created, or she or it, which God is not a he, she, or it. God is not a gender, but the reality that is true will remain true forever. That we live forever. That we are the substance of the thing hoped for. We are the evidence of the thing not seen. We are the resurrection, and we are the life right now in this moment. Whatever you might be doing, wherever you might be in this moment, know that you are the resurrection and you are the life. You are, I am, we all are. That's good news. That was the whole purpose of the dramatic end of Jesus's life, was to prove what? To prove once and for all that death is not real. To prove once and for all that God is not a liar. To prove once and for all that God is a loving Father. Even in the midst of our waywardness, even in the midst of our misunderstanding, even in the midst of our complete denial and betrayal, God still remained faithful to the promise are the guarantee of your salvation, of your awakening. It's just that joy comes when we wake up to it and begin to have the direct experience of what it is to live a resurrected life. It is so much fun. It is so adventurous. It is so creative. It is so abundant. It's an abundant life that Jesus talked about. I came that we may have this life and have it more abundantly. What is the more abundant life has to do with? Does it have to do with the accumulation of things? Or is he talking about our having a direct experience of our true nature? I believe it's the latter. That in this moment, in 2022, with what we see around the globe, that will cause us to question whether or not this thing about God or this thing about who we are is really real, even in the midst of all of this. Just like Jesus had to face in the midst of the betrayal, the absolute way that it was completely denied the truth of his life, and he was rejected, and all the horrid things that happened to him. In the face of all of that, he was able to hold his peace and say Father, they do not know what they are doing, so I forgive them, as though they never even done anything. Why? Because he held fast to the end the truth, the promise of God. Are we holding fast in our lifetime today? Are we being real, or are we being false? Are we being real? Are we experiencing the love of God that we are, the love of Christ? Or are we being judgmental? Are we being are we holding other people's faults and mistakes against them? Or we're holding our own faults and mistakes against ourselves? This is a great Friday to examine yourself, like he said, and see if you be of faith. See if you have awakened and embraced your reality as this oneself. And so he says, although we are oneself, we experience ourselves as two. This is the human dilemma. Even though we're oneself, even though we are timeless and a formless being, we experience ourselves as a timeless and formless being, and we also experience ourselves as in time and space and in form. So that's a dilemma. Are we Are we oneself, timeless and formless, or are we two selves, time and space and in form? It says so although we are oneself, it said we experience ourselves as two, as both good and evil. Come on now, we know what we're talking about. We've seen the good of ourselves, and we've seen that we can be not so good. It says loving and hating. Whoa, we know that we can be loving, and we also have a propensity to sometimes want to hate. It says as mind and body. Are we seen or are we unseen? We've experienced ourselves both ways, as body identification and as a mind that is invisible. So he said that even though we are this one self, that we can or have experienced ourselves as two, as though we're split. That's the human dichotomy. We've experienced ourselves as divine, and we've experienced ourselves as a limited being. It says this sense of being split. So it's this sense of being split into opposites induces feelings within us of acute and constant conflict. That's where we're conflicted in many cases. It's almost like we can't. What can we? How can we experience one without what the other intruding? How can I be happy consistently when what I'm always being faced with what things that want to make me unhappy? So this is the dichotomy of the human life. So, and God is recognizing this. We're recognizing this. We're not denying one or the other. What we're saying is these experience, or what am I experiencing? Because the course is telling us here we can experience our what? We can have a direct experience of our true self. And that's what we want. But like Paul said, the thing that I want to do, I don't do. And the things I don't want to do, I do. What is going on here? I seem split. And we all have that experience as humans. Come on now. We do. So how do we navigate ourselves back to our one self? And this is what these workbook lessons are helping us to do. It says, this sense of being split into opposites induces feelings of acute and constant conflict and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspect of this self-perception. So we're always trying to what? Find the center, find the balance, find the harmony within ourselves. The urge to what? Honor ourselves. Like Jesus said, no man can what? No man can what? Be committed to two masters. He's gonna want what? He's gonna either do what? Love one and hate the other. And that's the human dilemma. It says, we have sought many solutions and none of them have worked. We've done so many things in our lives. You know, the crazy stuff we do with our bodies, the crazy stuff we do, the commitments we make, trying to find that balance and harmony within our life. We get into relationships, we go out and purchase things, we join things, we do all kind of stuff and trying to find a what? Place of peace, a place of what? Harmony, a place of balance in our life. We got this mind that's telling us one thing, but then we sense in our inner self that we're this. We got what? All of our history, all our conditioning telling us that we should be this way. But then, and when we get quiet, we hear this unction that no, we are love. We shouldn't be that way. We should be a little more compassionate, a little more loving, a little more forgiving, have a little more empathy. In our quiet time, that's what we're hearing. That we should be all inclusive, that we should exclude no one from our love, that we should not see anyone different than us. That's what we hear in our quiet time. But then we got this mind that's always wrangling, always chattering, always critical of ourselves and of others. And it keeps us it says here. It says it keeps us in constant conflict. Who am I? My feelings and then my emotions going all over the place. My psychological self feels like it's suffering between the two poles. This is part of what the human experience. And so he says that we're in constant conflict and leads to frantic attempts to reconcile the contradictory aspect of this self-perception. So it creates in us a self-perception of double-mindedness. We have all these different aspects of ourselves pulling in different directions. And we're serving one at one moment, and then the next day or the next moment, we decide to serve another pull, and to the point that we're pulled apart. And life seems difficult. And so here we are now on this 96th day studying the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, which is being presented to us as a way out, or as a tool to help us to come into this place of peace, to come into this place of reality, to where we can eventually relax into only that which is true. that we can wake up from the illusions of separation, that we could actually uh, step out of these fantasies of the multiple pulls and finally experience our true self, the one self that it says. That whole process is what we call salvation or transformation or renewal or awakening or born again or enlightenment. That's what it's all about. And it's the most natural process that can happen in our life. But I know it gets really over spiritualized at times to where it leaves a bad taste in our mouth. And so attempting to present this in such a way that it's all encompassing, all inclusive. I'm talking to all humanity. I'm not trying to convince. I am only presenting this material so that what it says in the practice of this material, it is in your practicing of it that will let you know whether it's true or not to you. And I happen to have experienced this for over the last studying this for the last 15, 16, 17 years. And so what I'm speaking now, not so much more from the principles here, but I'm speaking so much more from my own personal experience in the life that I experienced, in the love that I experienced as a result of giving myself over to these ideas who I find to be true. We are one self, and we remain as God created us. That's all we need to know. And so it says, we have sought many such solutions, and none of them have worked. The opposites that we see in us will never be compatible. Death and life are not compatible. Eternity and limitation is not compatible. Real and unreal are not compatible. Knowing and unknowing are not compatible. Love and hate is not compatible. Change and unalterability is not compatible. Oneness and multiplicity is not incompatible. Changeless and change are not compatible. What God created and what we make will never be compatible. What we can learn and what we can experience are not compatible. Time and timelessness are not compatible. Form and formlessness are not compatible. Opposites and sames are not compatible. Beginning and ending are not compatible. Only thing that is compatible is God is. I am. We merely are one self, one shared being. That's the only compatibility that exists. No duality. We share the one self. That's the only compatibility in reality. And when we come to recognize this, it only takes a recognition. We begin to experience the harmonious, joyful, peaceful, blissful, unlimited, pure presence of the one thing, of the only thing, the equality, the beauty, the splendor, the full expression, the life, the abundant life, as our elder brother describes it, the heavenly awareness is only the one life that we share. It's the only thing that is compatible on this great Friday. That's the whole. That is the whole conclusion, even of the dramatic life of our elder brother, that we are reminded of today. That's what this message is about. Salvation of our oneself is the compatibility, the only compatibility that there is. That we share the same life as God. In traditional Christianity, they call it what? The resurrected life. In the Christian community, say what? We have been what? Crucified with Christ. See, still talking about the oneness. So we know it's not talking about bodily we know it's not talking about bodily crucifixion. Why? Because our bodily form was not physically present at the time. So it has to be talking about the crucifixion of a false self, the crucifixion of a dream, the crucifixion of fantasy, the crucifixion of the era of separation. That's what it means in Galatians when it says we have been crucified with Christ. Nevertheless, it says nevertheless. It says that's how the story goes. It says nevertheless we live. He said we've been crucified, but nevertheless we live. You see, that's the only thing that's compatible. Crucifixion and life are not compatible. The only thing that is compatible is life. He says, nevertheless, we still have this shared life. And the dream of separation is over. The dream of death is over. The dream of sickness and disease and disharmony is over. The dream of lack, the dream of fear, the dream of punishment, the dream of sacrifice is over. The dream of inequality, it is over. Why? We crucified it. It was crucified. Meaning what? It was done away with in its nothingness. I show you it was nothing. I showed you after all of that, after all of the drama and the trauma, even to the destruction, the extreme destruction of a body that they called me. He said, even after all of that, he said, nevertheless, we live. He didn't just say, I live. He said, nevertheless, we live. He said, not I, but what? The one self, Christ, lives what? As us. The one life Christ that always been. It remains what? Intact. He said Humpty Dumpty didn't fall off the wall. Humpty Dumpty remains what? On the wall, and the wall remains. He said the laying down of a physical body is not what? It's not real death. It's just the laying down of a physical body. Its usefulness is over. It is not our identification. It's not who we are. It's an experience that we had called a human experience. And we're all having it in our own way. But none of that changes anything. He said, even my birth, my death, my crucifixion, my death, my resurrection, it didn't change. It proved that nothing changed. Heaven remains intact. Not one note in heaven has been lost. He said, I and you are where we always been, in the heart of our Father. He said, you and I it remain where we always have been, as our Creator what created us. So this is the real meaning of Easter time, not the explanation that we give to it from a separated self, but from a point of view of oneness. But from the point of view of God, from the point of view of reality, it's like nothing really happened. But we're still like in the midst of the drama and the trauma. In our 2022 edition of the life, the crucifixion, the death, and the resurrection of you and of me. But we're here to share with you that only in dreams, that this could ever happen, because reality remains intact. So as we wake up one by one, as we resurrect our minds one by one to that which is real, that which is true only, we become the substance of things hoped for. People can look at your life and say, that's the evidence I've been looking for. You can experience in your life that I am the evidence of the thing that is not been seen. What is the thing not seen? Your timeless, formless self. So your form become the evidence of your resurrected form, right? You remember Jesus came back in a resurrected body. So we're sharing that resurrected body right now. So your body in the form that it is right now, as we bring our mind into alignment with the reality, your body is being held together by this resurrected power, this resurrected life that Jesus showed us. After the death or the laying down of the body, he reappeared in this glorified life, this supernatural, beyond natural appearance. And in reality, that's the life that we are living now. That's the one self. So resurrection happens in you when you embrace these truths, these realities, where you come to know that the life that you now live in the flesh, in this physical corporeum, that the life that you live now, you live this life, this resurrected life, is right now. That eternity is right now. Heaven is not something you're looking forward to in the future. Eternity is not something you're looking forward to the future. But you are appearing in the resurrected life of Christ right now. This is the truth. And this is a truth that transforms your life. And so the fact that truth and illusions cannot be reconciled, no matter how hard we try, what means we use and where we see the problem must be accepted if we would experience salvation, if we would experience this resurrected life. Until we have accepted this, we will attempt an endless list of goals that we cannot reach, a senseless series of expenditures of time and effort, hopefulness and doubt, each one as futile as the one before and failing as the next one surely will. There is no answers outside of ourselves. There's no answers to your human dilemma outside of the acceptance of the reality of who you are as the shining light of God right now. Not will be, but that's who you are right now. The resurrected Son of God right now. And resurrection happens when we bring the mind into mind into what? The harmony of the reality of who we are. And that's why we do these exercises, to train and discipline the mind to be its loving self, to train and discipline the mind to be its divine self, to train and discipline the mind to be the self of equality, to release all what prejudices, that we deny all the world's wrangling, all the world's training of us to be these separate beings and to be these hateful beings, to deny the world our allegiance. And when I'm talking about the world, I'm talking about deny this false self that we've made, any allegiance. Nevertheless, we live, not I, not this false self, but Christ, the one self. Galatians, it says, I've been crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, not I, but what? Christ, the one self. It's Christ that's living. It's Christ is who you are. It said, now the life I live in this flesh, I live by what? The faith or the confidence. See, I live by the confidence of the Son of God. I live by the confidence of that which God what created and not which I made, that demonstrated only life. Don't look at all the content of the story. Don't get what? Caught up in the content of experience. Only look at what? What are the results of resurrected life? That's all that matters. All of the troubles of life that we have faced, all of the many roads that we've gone down that has led us only into the disappointment, into what? Fear and anguish. So don't look at that. That was just a temporary experience. The only thing that matters is your awakening to this resurrected life that you are right now. That's the only thing that matters. Those things blow away when you finally find the treasure of who you are. Problems that have no meaning cannot be resolved within the framework that they are set. See, our life has no meaning. The events of our life really have no meaning when we finally what? Enter into this what? Awareness of resurrection. None of that behind us mattered. Only thing that matters is what? That we awakened. When you wake up from a dream, the only thing that matters what? Is that you awake. The dream doesn't matter anymore. When you come into the knowing of yourself, all the things that you held against others or yourself or the world or whatever, that doesn't matter anymore. We let them go. Father, we forgive them. What? We didn't know what we was doing. Now we awake. We know what we're doing. We know who we're being. It says two selves in conflict could not be resolved. We'll never resolve the two selves. It said, and good and evil have no what meeting place. The self that we made can never be our true resurrected self. Nor can our true resurrected self be split in two and still be what it is and must forever be. A mind and a body cannot both exist. We are either one or the other. We are either the mind of Christ or the mind of God, or we are body. Which one are we? It says, make no attempt to reconcile the two. For one cannot, it says, for one denies the other can be real. Your true self, who you are as a timeless, formless being, denies that your false self, as in time and space, in form, it denies that its reality. That's why James said, what? Be not double-minded. A double-minded man, what, can accomplish nothing. You either who God created you to be, or you who you made. Which one are you? That's the question that we're here answering. Where are you, Adam? Where are you? We have to do the self-inquiry. We have to self-inquire. We have to contemplate and meditate. In order what? To finally bring this dichotomy into what? Oneness. Mind saying one thing, my heart saying another thing. Where would the two join? They can never be reconciled. We have to what? We have to make a decision. We have to accept reality. Or we will what? We will what? We will experience unreality. We have to accept the fact that we are love, or we will experience hate. We have to accept the fact that we are eternal beings, or we will experience what? Limitation. So it's all our choosing at this moment. But God guarantees that we will eventually choose correctly. It says, make no attempt to reconcile the two, for one denies the other can be real. If you are physical, your mind is gone from your self concept, for it has no place in which it could be really part of you. If you are spirit, then the body must be what? Meaningless to your reality. Spirit makes use of our mind as means to find its what? One self expression. So the mind was never meant to lead us. The mind was only meant to be a servant to our full expression. But we follow a split mind that believe is separate from its source. And that's where all the confusion in life, that's why all the problems in relationships in life among men and women in humanity, because there's a seemingly split in the mind. And we've made the mind our guide in its split state. The mind was never meant to lead us. The mind was only meant to serve the heart, to serve the oneself. And so we have to what? Bring the mind and retrain the mind in its what? Its purpose. And as we do this, we begin to what? Have that experience. It says, and the mind will serve the spirit. And the mind which serves the spirit is at peace, see, and filled with joy. The mind will stop being a critic of you and others, and the mind will begin to what? Support the reality of our oneness. That's what happens when the mind is transformed. It will stop being a critic and start being what? A full supporter. It will support the heart. It will support our reality. It says, its power come from spirit. The mind's power comes from spirit, and it is fulfilling happily its function here. Yet mind can also see itself divorced from spirit or split, and perceive itself within a body it confesses with itself. Without its function, then it has no peace, no happiness, and alien to its thoughts. So that's what a split mind looks like, feels like. And that's what happened in our experience in life. Walking with a mind that seeming like it's totally against us, trying to destroy us. So the mind has to be what? Trained. It has to be trained, and that's our responsibility. And that's why we do these lessons. It says, yet mind apart from spirit cannot think. It has denied its source of strength and sees itself as helpless, limited and weak, disassociated from its function now. It thinks it is alone and separate, attacked by armies and masses, massed against itself and hiding in the body's frail support. Now must it reconcile unlike with like, for this is what it thinks that it is for. It says, waste no more time on this. Who can resolve senseless conflict which a dream presents? So we have to be dreaming of this, dreaming of separation. What could the resolution mean in truth? What purpose could it serve? What is it for? Salvation cannot make illusions real, nor solve a problem that does not exist. Perhaps we hope it can. Yet, would we have God's plan for the release of his creation bring pain to him and fail to set him free? So That mind, that idea has to be what crucified. Not attacked, but crucified. And the way crucifixion happens, Jesus demonstrated the way crucifixion really happened. If you're a natural person, you're looking at all the horrid things that happen to the body. But if you're spiritually minded, what you really see and observing is what? The way he handled it. The way he handled it. He did not resist. He did not defend himself. Why would he defend himself in a dream? Why would he resist in unreality? He knew the truth. And that's why he was able to say, Father, forgive them for what? They don't know what they're doing. They're dreaming of separation. They're dreaming of being exiled from you. They're dreaming. They're dreaming of a what? Of a world of separation. So we forgive them. So in conclusion, on this great Friday, salvation comes from what? Our oneself. And all the thoughts of God are in that oneself. It says our oneself retains its thoughts and they remain within our mind, which is the mind of God. It says God's Spirit holds salvation in our mind and offers it the way to peace. Salvation is a thought that we share with God because God's voice accepted it for us and answered it in our name. That it was done. It is finished. Like he said, it is finished. Thus is salvation kept among the thoughts of ourself, held dear and cherished for us. So God holds these realities for us until what? We're able to hold them for ourselves. So until we wake up, the Father stands over us with the truth and as the truth. And so as we wake up, we stand as what? The evidence and the substance over the whole world that still may be in a dream state until it wakes up. We stand over our brother, over our sister, and hold this space of truth for them until what? They wake up into the truth for themselves. That means we become what? Saviors of the world, just like our elder brother. That means what? We are what? We are that resurrected life that humanity is looking for. And we're here to stand as a light to point them to what? The resurrected life that is within themselves. So on this great Friday, this Good Friday, this Resurrection Friday, I declare to all humanity, I declare to the entire world that you have been reconciled back into reality, that you have been resurrected from the dream of separation. You've been resurrected from the fantasies of death. You've been resurrected from limitation and from lack and scarcity. You've been resurrected from sickness and disease and fear and doubt and trepidation. You've been resurrected from your own false belief. You've been resurrected from your own self-deception into a life that's always been yours. We have never been apart from our Father. We have never, ever sinned against God. We just fell asleep in a dream of errors and mistakes. But we are always like God created us. We have been resurrected into the innocence that we are. That's our message today. That's the lesson for today. Salvation comes from what? This oneself. And we wake up to this oneself. And today we label it the resurrection life. On this resurrection day, on this Good Friday, this great Friday, this awesome Friday. And this is the way it always have been. Heaven has never what? Lost one. Love has what? Forgotten no one. Even with all the diabolical diabolical craziness we see in the world, it's only in dreams. So we look past the dream and see the reality that God is, and there is nothing else. And so enjoy your day today. Each time today, you tell your frantic mind salvation comes from your one shared self. What you're doing is laying another treasure in your growing store. And all of it is given everyone who asks for it and will accept this gift. Think then how much is given unto us to give this day, that it be given to us. Thank you so much for joining me for lesson 96. It's been great being here with you. Enjoy this great Friday. Enjoy your resurrection life for the rest of life, which has no end. This is Oliver Blue, your guide on this side, and I love you. I am you. Oneself. Have a great day.